Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to my talk. My name is Dor Israeli. Today I'm going to present a paper I've co-authored together with Professor Yuda Afek, also from Tel Aviv University, Professor Anat Bremler-Bar from Reichman University, and my colleague Alon Ayers from Tel Aviv University. I see that Yuda and Anat joined, so I wanted to use this opportunity to thank them for their supervision in my thesis last year. So Localhost Detour attack from public to private networks. Now, before I begin, I want to say that I see that there are a lot of people here from different backgrounds and different branches of cybersecurity, of encryption, machine learning. I see some transformers lectures later on. So this talk is hopefully should be interesting and captivating instead of rigorous. But obviously, if people have questions, I'm available later and also after the conference. So let's begin. You got this link. You thought it was for Google. It was actually for a malicious website, right? Google. You enter the website, and even today, 2023, when going and visiting a malicious website, it can open your camera, can steal your cryptocurrency, it can play songs on your Alexa device, and even delete all of your Dropbox files. Even today, this talk will present a novel attack that we found together that circumvents all recent mitigations, and hopefully we have proposed some mitigations against it. So let's begin. In order to talk about those attacks that leverage your browsers, we need to talk about how do websites even work, right? So you search something on Google. For example, I search this cute cat images, and we can see two interesting behaviors that enable these rich World Wide Web websites that we are all used to. One is that the website Google is requesting their logo. So Google server is requesting a logo from Google server, but also we can see this image of a cat from this website I made up, animals.com. So the Google website, the Google server is requesting an image from a different server. We want sites to be able to work together and request information from other servers and other websites, right? This is enabling all of the richness and modern websites that we are familiar with. But we don't always want that. For example, when I go into my bank account, to my bank's website, I can see all of my information, my social security number, but I don't want an evil website, for example, right? A malicious website. We always name it evil.com, but it's just an example. We don't want a malicious website to be able to embed within it the bank website and fetch the private information. For example, here the password, we want to disable that kind of behavior. So sometimes we want websites to not be able to work together, or at least give the developers of the website some mitigations that can leverage. So this example was actually mitigated by some mitigation 20 years ago, for example. That was the first prominent mitigation against browser-based attacks. It's called the same origin policy, and today it's considered one of the basics mitigations. But other than protecting other websites, we also want to protect our internal devices. For example, your IoT devices, my Alexa device, right? So external websites, external server, malicious servers cannot access my Alexa device directly, right? This is thanks to routers and NATs. But what they can do is that attackers can trick you into visiting a malicious website, and that malicious website will get an instruction from the malicious server to talk with the Alexa device. And by this circumventing the router's capabilities. This is bad. We want to disable that. Enter private network access. This is a very recent mitigation proposed and deployed by the Google's Chrome security team, which are, by the way, amazing people, very smart. And it says two very simple insights. So again, let's reiterate the flow that we had before. a victim is tricked to visit a malicious website, right? You accidentally clicked a link. That link communicates, makes your browser communicate with the malicious server. And the server again instructs your computer to talk with your Alexa device. For example, to play a song by Justin Bieber. Nobody wants to hear songs by Justin Bieber, right? So the first insight of the mitigation is that this request is very weird, right? Why is that? Because an external server initiated a request to an internal device. So the first insight is that we should regard this kind of communication as very weird and unnatural. And the second insight is that we can maybe mitigate by just having some conversation beforehand. So the browser can now ask the Alexa device, dear Alexa device, do you approve of this request coming from an external server named google.com? The Alexa device will surely say, no, I do not approve of this. I was not designed to, to communicate with that server. And the browser will block the communication. Simply by doing that, they've raised the bar and blocked a lot of the attacks that were, until last year or this year, were possible for a lot of, for a long duration. And just to complete the picture, they can also enable the communication when needed. For example, if I go to the Alexa website, it communicates with the Alexa external server, which gives instructions. For example, update the Alexa firmware. And again, this communication is weird. So the browser initiates this kind of conversation. It uses existing mechanisms, but it's a new mitigation. And now it asks Alexa, dear internal IoT device, dear Alexa, do you approve this request coming from the external server, alexa.com? And now Alexa can say yes, and that request and further communication would be allowed. This is great, but it's not perfect. And the reason is that sometimes developers have to do very creative things to get their job done. And I'm sure a lot of you have also made some creative workarounds around the mechanisms. So I'll give an example. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this screen. This is the gaming software Steam. I use it a lot. You can log in and play games, and this is great. And there's a website as well. So sometimes you have to go to the website to see some content, and it will be very weird if after playing for, I don't know, 7 hours, right, on a weekend, when I go to the website, it will ask me to log in. And the Steam developers didn't want this behavior to be like this. So what they've done is something very creative. So again, assuming there's the software installed. So when you visit the Steam website, instead of asking you to log in, it communicates with the software installed on your computer. Dear software, who is the user logged into the software? The software responds, and now the website can just welcome you without having to log you in. This is great, but it raises some problems. And this kind of creative behavior was the foundation for the attack that together with Yehuda and Anat and Alon, we found. It's called Localhost Detour attack due to the details of the implementation, but the name local imply that it leverages those local softwares. So let's see a flow of how we can exploit this kind of creative behavior to mitigate the private network attack access. So again, a victim is tricked to visit a malicious website. That malicious website can just redirect to the Steam website, steam.com. This is not something new. This is okay. This is a feature, not a bug. Now, the Steam website, the steam.com website, can communicate with the software. Again, by design, this is the creative behavior that we've talked about before. What if we can, and we demonstrate that in the next slide, convince the Steam website to give an instruction to the Steam software. For example, open the smart lock, some IoT device in my local network. And what if we can find vulnerabilities in those local softwares. And our thesis is that you can, because those kinds of software are doing something they are not supposed to. And they are very unknown to the users. I didn't know that Steam has this functionality, for example, or Dropbox and other programs that we talk about in the next slide. So there are vulnerabilities in these kinds of softwares. So now the Steam software will be exploited and will send a request to the IoT device. Now, again, this is a weird behavior. Why is that? Because it's a request initiated by an external server to an internal device. So presumably, the private network access mitigation I just talked about should have mitigated this request, but it didn't. Why is that? It's because although the malicious website initiated this chain of reaction, it wasn't the direct initiator of the request to the smart lock. The direct initiator was the Steam software, and the browser sees it as a trusted entity because it is run on your local machine, on your computer. And by this circumventing the private network access mitigation. Now, this is a very, at least personally, this is a very cool idea of using some chain reaction to circumvent the mitigation. But is it real? Is it possible? Are there such programs like Steam? The answer is yes. We found, at least in our research, at least 1 billion affected users worldwide with big names like Dropbox and Steam. I'm sure all of you are familiar with IntelliJ and Arduino and Jupyter and so on. And we demonstrate the attack. So we've chosen Folding at Home, which is a very nice open source solution product that enables users to leverage their idle computer to do some research, for example, to research vaccines against COVID or cancer. How does it look? There is some domain that when you, after installing the software, when you visit the domain, it shows you some dashboard. Here are all of your CPUs and so on. Let's see the attack in action. It's important to note that we have found a vulnerability in the website, enabling us to control the code executed. We have since then made a responsible disclosure and they fixed the vulnerability. So here is the real life flow. A user is tricked to visit a malicious website. That malicious website redirects to the dashboard. Again, no mitigations there. That dashboard communicates with the local software by design, and then the vulnerability kicks in, and the dashboard talks with the Alexa device. And we've demonstrated that, and it bypasses and circumvents the private network access and all of the browser mitigations. This is bad. So we propose to mitigate that, and it's important to mitigate such attacks. And we say there are 3 kinds of mitigations. One, we want to mitigate the last request, and we can do that by making sure the browser doesn't give special trust to local softwares. But it's not a silver bullet. So we propose the second mitigation, which is an ability to sandbox those kind of softwares, because usually the communication is just to pass information and not to execute code. But again, it's not a silver bullet, and hence we propose the third mitigation, which is to make it harder to reduce the surface area of the attack by making it harder for Steam.com to communicate with such local softwares, because usually that communication should only be enabled for a specific part of the website. For example, in Steam's case, only for the login functionality, not for the search functionality. That's everything summarized in 10 or 15 minutes. Those attacks are real, and it's an active research field. And the attack that we have found together is real as well and should be accounted for. So thank you very much, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Dor, for your presentation. Do we have any questions from the audience? It looks like there's no question, so thank you again, Dor.